What a year Bubba Wallace has had, whether it be the Indy 500, the Brickyard 400, and his outstanding performance there, over to his controversy at the Roval. It has been a crazy season, and it's time to recap it right now.
Lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the
What's up YouTube, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be finally getting started with our 2019 NASCAR season review. Today we'll be starting with RPM and Bubba Wallace. Now Bubba Wallace has had a crazy season, so I can't wait to get into this. But before we get into it though, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at NASCAR Talk America. NASCAR Talk America is by far my favorite NASCAR Discord server, really Discord server in general. There's so much stuff to do. You have the general chat where you can talk just about anything, and then you have, you can talk about specific Cup series, the Xfinity series, Gander Outdoor Truck series. There's a question of the day, all of that fun stuff. Here's all your news and standings. Standings doesn't really do much anymore, but you can see news from each and every Twitter page for NASCAR. And then we have here when there are actual races, you have your racing commentary, and then you can actually talk in the booth. And then moving on down, you have your other motorsports and sports. And then here's where you can advertise and all that stuff. But I also have my own little tab here where I put all of my uploads and ask you guys some questions and just communicate with you guys. So if you guys want to talk to me some more, I try and talk on Twitter, but I also will be talking on here. So be sure to go ahead and check out NASCAR Talk America. The link will be in the description below. Thank you NASCAR Talk America for being such great partners, and before we get into the video, make sure you like, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into the video. So Bubba Wallace went into this season with a chip on his shoulder. He was coming into his second full-time NASCAR Cup season with RPM, well, it's just in general, but also with RPM, a team that had a chip on their shoulder as well. They have not had the performance that they've seen. I mean, they never were really a god-tier team, but they definitely were not as bad as they were in the previous year, which is kind of half Bubba, half RPM. But anyways, Bubba came into this season with a chip on his shoulder. He knew that, yeah, he might have decent sponsorship, but his results are not warranting that. And as the season went on, we saw that sponsorship was a problem. And it would finally come to a head when Worldwide Technologies would step in and, in the name of Victory Junction, sponsored the car for the rest of the season. And then, as we might remember, Rick Allen actually pointed out that, or didn't really, I think actually made something slip that we didn't think of. He mentioned that Bubba Wallace was possibly going to be part-time by the end of the season, and we knew it was bad at RPM. I think some of us probably saw that coming, but others were kind of surprised by this. And luckily Worldwide Technologies came in and saved the day, and really saved the day, because Bubba Wallace, ever since getting that boost, actually saw a boost in performance. If we look at Bubba Wallace's 2019 stats, they don't look that impressive. A 28th point finish and an average finish of 23.9. But if we dig a little deeper and look after the Coke 0400 and we take out his DNF at Kansas, in which he didn't really race that long, he had an average finish of 20, which still is not great, but it's still, for Bubba Wallace and RPM, an improvement on last season. And it just really, the kind of highlight of that is that third place at Indianapolis, which we will get into in just a moment. The season for Bubba Wallace and RPM got off to a shaky start. I mean, sponsorship was at a premium, and I don't think they really had the money to bring a car to the track that would actually be competitive. And they started looking like, a Go Fast Racing on par with a team like that, or Front Row. I mean, I think even Front Row was maybe outrunning them. So, they were looking like just no progress was being made, and it was not looking good. But around Charlotte, I'm not sure the exact time frame this happened, but around Charlotte, I do remember the Worldwide Technologies, announcement being made, and that correlated with the same time as the All-Star race, which I see personally as the turning point in this season for Bubba Wallace. as he would go ahead and win an open race. A very emotional Bubba Wallace after winning that open race goes into the All-Star Open, and he didn't really make anything really at the beginning, but then all of a sudden at the end he was just there, and I believe he got a top 5, if not just outside the top 5, and what was already a crazy race. If you add Bubba Wallace to the conversation, it's even crazier. So he really shut out the All-Star race, which really gave a lot of people a sense of, yeah, this guy's talented if he has the engine behind him, which I believe, and I'll probably get into here in just a little bit, or if not another video. So anyways, that's what, obviously, like I said, when the Worldwide Technology sponsorship came in, and what basically, if you guys don't understand what happened, is they basically donated the money to Victory Junction with the assumption and with the intent of sponsoring the car, the 43 car, and all of that. And a fun fact that I always forget, that Worldwide Technologies is now the title sponsor of Gateway. I'm always going to call it Gateway for the rest of my life, but that is actually the name. So interesting enough, it's not, Worldwide Technologies is not just in it for Bubba Wallace. It looks like they actually have a stake in racing and look to build around racing. I'm not really sure what Worldwide Technologies does personally, but it looks like they have interest in racing, which is something you always like to see. But anyways, moving on from the All-Star race, he had a couple decent races for the team, and progressively looking better, especially if you consider the shaky start that they had. Once we get to Indianapolis, so that's where it all peaked at Indianapolis. And I'm not even sure what happened. I did not watch the beginning of that race. All I know is I turned on my TV and Bubba Wallace is in 3rd place. And then a caution comes out and he has a chance to win the race and completely bullshit the playoff system. Luckily, I guess luckily it didn't happen. It'd be kind of interesting to see him in there, but obviously you would probably just, exit in the first round. But still would have been very interesting to see him actually compete in the playoffs, and just, it'd probably be fun to see how Twitter just goes crazy about the playoff system, how he should not be in there. But luckily, I think for all of our sake of not having a headache, he did not get in and just got a 3rd place, which still is insanely good for him. And I believe if you take out Daytona, is his best career finish. So shout out to him for that. And I don't know what Richard Petty found at Indy, but hopefully he can find it at other tracks as well. And yeah, so Indy happens, and from that point on, he did not look bad. He had decent races, and really, actually, I do want to point out that I don't think he was having bad races per se. He didn't like, his finish didn't really tell the story. There would be times where he would find himself in the top 15, maybe even top 10 at times, and then there would be an issue, whether it be his own fault or another driver's doing, that would then cause him to not finish in the top 10 and top 15 and rather finish 22nd to 25th. And that is a theme. I know it happened at Richmond, obviously at the Roval. He was having great days that were just ended early by his own or another driver's doing. But as we move on to the Roval, we have the Roval incident with Alex Bowman, when Alex Bowman punted Bubba for flipping him off. I'm not going to take a side in that. I still technically haven't. All I'm going to say is that, I think Alex Bowman had good reason to be mad, but Bubba Wallace at the same time had very good reason to be mad. I did not think that was professional to do what he did to Alex Bowman, with the people around. If they were to fight, I would have agreed with the fight. But, like when Alex Bowman was already down, he had said he was sick before the race. He wasn't playing sick like Bubba said and all of that. And I think that Bubba kind of took it out of context. Like he said, one of his reasons he said in a podcast was that, because of something that happened all the way back in Martinsville. So to me, I feel like Bubba was just kind of holding a grudge. But I don't know. I don't blame him for being mad in the situation. If Alex Bowman weren't on the ground sick and, exhausted, I would not have blamed him for fighting, and I'm not really picking a side still, but I don't think that was very professional what he did, even though he had pretty good reason behind it. Now, if I were to tell you at the beginning of the season that this would actually turn out to be a really good season for RPM, a very developmental season, and with a couple high points that, flashes of what maybe they can be in the future, then I'd probably call you crazy back then. I'd probably, especially if you did it, kind of before the All-Star race and we're still in the season and seeing how they're doing, I probably would have called you crazy. But believe it or not, they did. Definitely a lot of help from that Worldwide Technology sponsorship, or Victory Junction sponsorship technically, but that definitely helped them a lot, and I really like the improvements that we saw towards the end of the season. I think one thing Bubba does need to look for, and I don't really want to talk about going into the season, but I do want to say something that I saw this season, like I said earlier, was that he would have, these top 15, top 10 races. Okay, I don't think he was in the top 10 a lot, but top 15 performances, and whether it be himself or something else, he would end up finishing outside the top 20. So if he can somehow figure out how to eliminate the mistakes, and again, I know they weren't all his fault, there were other drivers involved, or maybe his pit crew, but if that can somehow be eliminated by him or his pit crew, I believe that he could turn into a very consistent driver. But again, we'll have to wait and see. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. That's all I got, though. Make sure to let me know, what did you guys think of my thoughts on Bubba Wallace this season, and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Bubba Wallace this season. How do you think he did? I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, not really a scale of 1 to 10. You can't really scale this. I'm not Eric out here. No, not trying to offend him. That's just a joke because he likes to rate a lot of things. But I would say this is definitely a good season for both RPM and Bubba Wallace. I know and like I said earlier, like the finish in the race, didn't really tell the story of the race itself. Well, the finish in the season did not tell, the 28th finish did not tell the season's story. The story that was displayed this season for Bubba Wallace. So I definitely believe that he definitely should have been higher than 28th if he would have been able to perform the way he did in the second half of the season and the first half of the season, but obviously that didn't happen, so we can't really say what if. But anyways, that's all I got for today, so make sure to comment down below your guys' thoughts, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and that's all I got for today. See you in the next one. Peace out.